Well, guys, we had a crazy snowstorm yesterday, and today it's like 10 degrees and the sun's shining. It's hard to believe. Um, Today I'm going to do a little more in-depth review on the Bloc CV Tech 80 clutch and show you why they're so good, what's great about them, what's bad about them. There really isn't much bad, trust me. So we're going to get right down to it, and I myself run these clutches on both my machines. I've got a 2010 Crossfire and I've got the old ZR 580. I'm actually going to be pulling the 580 clutch apart to do a little bit of adjustment. But basically, when you order these clutches, you order them specific for your machine. They come pre-dialed in for your machine, but that is to an extent. Right off the bat, I want to show you, here's the factory clutch off of the 580, which is very similar to the Crossfire clutch, and you got a lot of moving parts inside of these, and you know, typical wear on the weights and the rollers and all that foolishness is what you deal with when you run these clutches. And you know, sure, you can adjust them, put different weights in them, set them up different, but the time that it takes is pretty ridiculous. So for what these cost to build new when you need one, you're way farther ahead to buy one of these. Because first of all, this clutch is way heavier than the Bloc. So right off the bat, you're 25% reduction on the crank, and I run a new fuel injected sled. I don't have any starting issues. Once in a while, yeah, it'll stall in reverse, but I think that's just a typical Arctic Cat thing, but no issues whatsoever. So for adjustment, you know, they come pre-calibrated, they're set up pretty good, but you know, if you have modifications or if you want to change your engagement point, change your top end rev, whichever you choose that you need to do, you can do so quite easily with these clutches. So, you know, this is installed on the sled. No, you don't even have to take the belt off. You can do this with the clutch right on the engine. So the first thing you do is you take your crank bolt out, and you know, some people, your case, the very first thing, I usually just crack this off with my DeWalt impact gun, but if you get rotation issues, then you get the piston stop involved. And actually for this next step, once the bolt is out, I strongly advise using the piston stop, because you need to torque this stuff back up tight or you'll have issues. So once you take the crank bolt out and the washer, you back this big nut off, and behind this nut you're going to have an octagon washer. The center of it's cut out like an octagon. The cover is also cut out like an octagon. So the first thing I usually do is, these are marked right here. So you get a little mark here, and you get a little mark here on your inner sheath, and these here are on a spline. So when you take this nut off, this can get out of rotation, so take a note of that. And it's even a good note sometimes to even mark the front cover before you take it off. So just little notes to keep in mind if you're thinking about it running one of these clutches, but nothing to it. You just take that bolt out, take the nut off, take the washer off, and you just put your hand in that crack and you can pop the cover with your fingers. So once you get the cover popped, this is what you have. And actually there will be 3 of these blocks. So one goes there, one goes there, and one goes there. And these blocks essentially are your weights. and they really don't move. They might shake around a tiny bit in there, but they generally do not move. And if you look at the block, the one side's cut out quite a bit deeper than the other, so that's the side that goes in. So to adjust your weights and your clutching calibration, all you simply do when you get this block out is you flip it upside down, and you'll see there's like a flathead screwdriver washer piece here. So first thing I strongly advise, is use a large screwdriver that fully fits this hole, because it is like a hard plasticky material, and you do want to get these tight, and they're fairly tight even when you take them apart from new if you're going to make adjustments. So don't use a small screwdriver, use a big one. Make sure you fill that hole as much as you possibly can, and you simply turn it this way, back it out, and there's your washer. You set that down, and inside what you have is a stack of these flat steel washers, and they're quite thin. When you buy one of these clutches new, it'll come with the book that says that, you know, they're good for 5,000 miles. Follow the directions in the book, don't do your own thing, but there's really nothing to it. I mean, here's the weights, so if you want higher clutching, you just, you know, take one or two out, put them back in your block, and the block is threaded most of the way, so you can take, you know, a fair amount of these out if you wish to. Put your Teflon piece back in, or plier plastic, and thread her in with your screwdriver. Then you just set your blocks back in, all three of them, and then you get your cover and you put your cover on. And it's pretty self-explanatory from there. You just put it back together. Again, this can be done in probably less time than I took to do this video. So, you know, if you carry your handful of tools on you and you're on the trail and you want to play with your clutch, these are an awesome setup. And I can personally say this clutch here had almost 5,000 miles onto it, and I only ruined the front cover. But what happened to me was I did not torque things up tight enough. I didn't put a piston stop in and give it that last bit of a crank, and I got out on the trail 15 miles from home. The crank bolt backed out, the nut came off onto me, and this started free spinning. But it also stripped the inner cover, so when, like, this is supposed to be on a spline that it doesn't free spin. If you take yours apart to adjust it on your sled and you get it out of line of those marks, when you go to line it back up, you'll feel that it has teeth onto it, and yeah, you don't want this stuff coming loose. Obviously, it's the same as a normal clutch. Go by the torque specs, use a piston stop when you go to tighten this gear up, and you will not have any issues. Like, I'm a strong believer of these clutches for the price of them and the performance of them. You don't get the whooshing noise on engagement. You don't get the whooshing noise in high RPM situations. They run pretty quiet. They also run pretty cool compared to a factory clutch. You know, if you're having heating issues or you're running a higher performance sled, then you already know about all that stuff, venting and everything. But I cannot brag enough how great these clutches are. And if you're in a race situation that you want, you know, extreme engagement compared to the factory sled, this one here was actually set a little bit low on my crossfire. I took 2 rounds of weights out so far, and I'm pretty happy with it. But again, depending what you want, if you want more top speed, lower RPMs, add some weight to it. I like it set up that it's snappy and jumpy, so I only took 2 I think there was 13 weights in my Crossfire, and I only removed 2 per block. So again, very quick and easy to adjust. Great product, and they actually have a pretty reasonable price tag onto them for what they are and what you get. Like, good for any application, you know, whether it's a daily driver or if it's a full-on race application. What I was going to try to say there before about the race applications, if you call CV Tech directly or even Royal Distributing, you can get these set up way more aggressively. They have different center springs available. When you do the adjustments that I show you, you do not get into the center spring. Basically, these clutches have a way stronger spring load. Like, we're talking, I think, 5 or 6 times greater than that of an ordinary, you know, spin clutch like that. So I've never actually personally taken one of these completely apart right down to the center spring. I've had no need to. I do have modifications done to my sled, but the way they sent this to me set up for the Crossfire, I'm able to make the adjustments I need to just by removing and playing with the weights in this thing, which will be the case in any application. I mean, these guys have done their testing. I think the biggest issue I ran into with having to take a few weights out is Quebec's higher in elevation. We're pretty much right here at sea level, so it's probably got a lot to do with that. But anyhow, that being said, guys, I'm not going to talk about it anymore. I'm just going to tell you from my experience, I haven't seen one of these clutches ever last more than 2,000 miles without needing a service. And I've personally put just under 5,000 on that power block, and the only reason anything happened was my own personal fault. Like, I was the cause of this, not the clutch. So, you know, no question, I just ordered another new one. I said I'm not going to try. They have every part and piece available. If, you know, if I wanted to buy a new front cover and a new centerpiece, I could do so. But I said, what the hell, you know, they're $650, $700 for a whole brand new setup. I get that for parts and pieces if I need it. And I also put one on the old the ZR 580, which you can hardly see it down in there. I get the cover on still. There it is. You know, and this isn't a high horsepower sled, as you all know if you know these machines. It's just a little 582 stroke, but that clutch woke it up quite a bit, and I'm going to set it up and make it even happier here this afternoon. So for you sled heads, well, I strongly recommend, you know, especially if you have the money, don't knock this product until you try it. And it's from here in Canada. They make them in Quebec. That's where the company's located. So they know their stuff, and we're in a winter climate, so these things are definitely tested.